to jail when our women can't grow no damn hair and the East Indian and Korean is making billions off of our...
I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart and I want respect.
The easiest way to debunk this fake movement claiming to be us is with Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 26 through 27. This is because the entire fake movement is rooted in the made-up idea by them that the Israelites would somehow forget that they were Israelites. The problem with this fake claim is that these fake phonies don't read carefully the text they're presenting. This is why they are not the real Hebrews, because they don't even know how to discern the proper text. It reads, I would, not will, I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men, were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord has not done this. You see that? It clearly reads that God would, not will, would make their remembrance to cease from among men, but he didn't. Why? Because it says he feared the wrath of the enemy and the fact that the nations would have taken credit for blotting out God's people from the earth, which would bring dishonor to God's holy name. That's a cut. That's a wrap. That's game over. There's no dancing around this. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 26 through 27 is the worst nightmare for the fake black Hebrew Israelites, because it shows that any fake group, any fake movement claiming that the Jews would ever forget who they were are either lying or completely ignorant or both. It clearly says that wouldn't happen and even tells you why it wouldn't happen. There isn't a single passage in the entire Hebrew scriptures that makes the claim that Israel would forget who they were, ever. Not a single passage. But, as I mentioned in many of my videos, I've made many videos debunking them. That's why it's getting boring. I've made and shown that God says over and over that there would always be a righteous remnant. And there always has been. Us, the real Israelites. An unbroken chain of family line going back to Moses at Mount Sinai. They can't provide that proof. We can. Nothing supports them. They even use Jeremiah chapter 17 verses 2 through 4, which says, whilst their children remember their altars and their groves by the green trees upon the high hills, O my mountain in the field, I will give thy substance and all thy treasures to the spoil, and thy high places for sin, and all thy borders, and thou shalt discontinue from thy heritage. This is what they use. Anyone with half a working brain, which is not what we're dealing with here, can see that the heritage is dealing with the land. They will discontinue from their land, referring to their exile. Hence, it refers to the altars, groves, substance, treasures, high places, and borders. They don't even read it properly. It doesn't say a word about them forgetting they were Jews. Not only that, if it was dealing with their ethnic identity, which it's not, which it clearly isn't, it would contradict Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 26 through 27. Some fake black Hebrew Israelites will even try to use Isaiah chapter 1, this is the hilarious part, verses 2 through 3, to claim the Jews would somehow forget that they were Jews. This just shows how desperate they are to promote this made-up fairy tale, because aside from the fact that it's merely dealing with the Israelites rebelling against God, Isaiah chapter 1, verses 2 through 3 isn't even a prophecy. In other words, it's speaking in the present tense. If you read it carefully, which they don't, it tells you just that. It says Israel does not know, Not Israel will not know, does not know. Obviously, the Israelites knew they were Israelites during Isaiah's time. DNA is another undebunkable proof that the fake black Hebrew Israelites cannot be the original Israelites because the origins of their DNA, E1B1A, point to the African Horn, not the Levant corridor as our DNA, real Israelite DNA, points to. African Horn is their origins. Now the Ethiopian Jews, who we are all close to, as well as the Lemba African Jews, they as well are very close to us. They themselves prove their lineage is through conversion. They don't even claim to be the original Jews, original Israelites. They say they are of their father Kush. Both of them proudly say of our father Kush. Yet African Americans here in the United States claim, no, we are the Israelites. Again, their DNA proves otherwise. Some of the fake black Hebrew Israelites grant that E1B1B is a Hamitic Kushite haplogroup. They have no choice because, like I said, since Ethiopians are E1B1B, and we know biblically that they are Kushites, what they don't realize is that admitting E1B1B is a Hamitic Kushite haplogroup, they are unknowingly admitting that E1B1A is also a Hamitic haplogroup, Kushite origins as well. Why? This is because E1B1A and E1B1B are sibling haplogroups, hence the A and the B at the end. That is, they branched off from the same parent haplogroup, which is E1B1. You get it? Another problem for the fake black Hebrew Israelites is that we now have Canaanite DNA. Did you know that? Oh, of course not, because they don't research this stuff. DNA evidence shows that modern Lebanese people share 90% of their DNA with that of 4,000-year-old Canaanite DNA blood. That means the Canaanites from the time of Abraham would have looked exactly like the modern Lebanese people do. In fact, this also shows that ancient Israelites would have resembled modern Lebanese people as well. Why? Because they would have been living amongst and intermarrying with these Lebanese Canaanites for 2,000 years, from the time of Abraham to the time of Yeshua, 2,000 years ago. We see throughout Scripture that the Israelites were mixing with the Canaanites, and these Canaanites are still here today in modern Lebanon. The fake black Hebrew Israelites point to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, that it proves the Atlantic slave trade out of Africa to America. Wrong again. Fail. You know why? They forgot to read verse 52, which specifically says that all of these things, this destruction, would happen in the land that I promised your forefathers. What land is that? We all know it's Israel, not Africa. So again, fail. They ask, well then when were you guys ever in slave ships to Egypt? And I'll tell you, as I said in many of my videos, in the year 70 AD. This is well documented. The fact that they don't even know this history shows once again that they are the fake black Hebrew Israelite cult on YouTube that are not the real thing, or they would know this. Another fact, not only do we fulfill this in the year 70 AD, we, the Jews, to literal Egypt, also, this was fulfilled, all the curses were fulfilled in biblical times in the exile to Assyria and Babylon. This is well documented in Scripture. Again, they don't study Scripture. They don't know Scripture. So they fail on every single thing that they claim. Next, they try to point to the Ethiopian Jews. I know the Ethiopian Jews. We all know the Ethiopian Jews and the Lemba Jews, and they don't even claim to be the originals. Yet you do. And you are in no way credible like they are. And they don't claim to be the originals. The Samaritan Israelites have never left Israel. They were there when we left Israel, and they saw when we came back. They know who left and who came back. And I'm close to them too. We know each other. So the Samaritan Israelites also debunked your fake, phony claims with your fake claim as well about the president of Egypt, which I debunked myself. And I will leave the link to show that the president of Egypt never made this claim. It's fake. Their whole list of claims are fake. Everything they post is fake.
Here's the real kicker. The fact that Russian Jews make up a large portion of the Jews in Israel today, which is what they try to point out, proves in itself that they are the real Jews. Why is this? Because Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 18 openly states that a large portion of Jews would return to the reborn nation of Israel from the land of the north. It reads as follows. This is Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 18. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. They shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto their fathers. Newsflash. The farthest northern nation that is directly north of Israel is Russia. So it's just a coincidence to them that the largest immigration of Jews returning back to Israel is from the very land that is directly north of Israel, which is Russia. Really? A coincidence? Notice also that we know Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 18 is dealing with the large portion of the Jews by virtue of the fact that it refers to them as the house of Israel, meaning many. Recall also how the ancient Israelite historian Josephus records that a majority of the 12 tribes were throughout Europe and Asia, like I mentioned before. One of the excuses the fake black Hebrew Israelites tried to make for why the Jews in the land today can't be the real Jews is because many of the Jews there are blaspheming the name of God and committing sins as if their nation isn't, which is hilarious, by the way. This just shows their ignorance of biblical prophecy. In Ezekiel chapter 39, verses 1 through 7, we read about the end-time battle of the nations coming against the reborn nation of Israel. This passage proves that the Jews will still be profaning the name of God in the land. Look at verses 6 through 7. And I will send a fire in Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles. And they shall know that I am Yehovah. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. And I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. This is in Ezekiel chapter 39, verses 6 through 7. You see that? Notice that this is stated after the Jews have returned to the land and after the end-time assault against real Israel. Hence, this shows that the Jews will still be profaning the holy name of God and others in the land, which debunks one of many of their fake lies that they say all the time, that the Jews are supposed to be completely sinless when they come back to the land. Furthermore, Zechariah chapter 14 openly states that the Jews would be settled in Jerusalem in the last days before the end-time assault of all the nations coming against Jerusalem. This is biblical prophecy all over the scriptures because they don't study scripture. They only study sound bites. What Josephus openly states in Antiquities of the Jews that there was already an entire tribe of Israel in Europe during his time. It's obvious that the fake black Hebrew Israelites simply want to exclude any European-looking people as Jews because they are black supremacists. They hate white people openly. Not only does the ancient Israelite historian Josephus openly state there was an entire tribe of Israel in Europe, again, in Europe, he lists where all the 12 tribes were and where they were known to be after the 70 AD destruction. I repeat, after the 70 AD year destruction of Jerusalem. Newsflash. He never says a word about them going to sub-Saharan Africa. Not one word. No historian says that. But yet they claim this. One of their long list of fake claims. Here's the exact quote from Josephus in Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 11. There are 2 tribes in Asia and Europe. I repeat, Asia and Europe, subject to the Romans, while until now there have been 10 tribes beyond the Euphrates. What does this mean? The tribes of Israel were primarily scattered throughout Europe and Asia. Notice that Josephus is writing in Rome and that the Euphrates is in Iraq. So when he says beyond the Euphrates, he means throughout Asia, east and north of Iraq. He doesn't say a word, once again, about sub-Saharan Africa or West Africa. Not one word. Again, Ashkenazi is German. It means Germany. In other words, they were given that title in exile because they settled in that region during exile. Just like Mizrahi Jews are given a Hamitic title because they settled in Egypt. Mizrahi comes from the Hebrew word for Egypt, which is Mitzrayim. And yet nobody, not even them, are trying to claim that Mizrahi Jews are the ancient Egyptians. But they do it with the Ashkenazi because, again, this is a game. This is a game that's being played with our scripture, with actual history. What more can I say? They always claim that Israel is hot and it's like Africa, blah, blah, blah. You heard all before. Not knowing, again, because they're not educated, they've never been there, not knowing that the temperature, the climate of Israel is always 70 degrees almost year-round. It's a Mediterranean climate. It is not sub-Saharan climate whatsoever. Okay, now we're going to talk about, with this point, skin tones here. The only comeback that the fake black Hebrew Israelites got for this one is their goofy Eskimos are brown line, which only shows how ridiculous their claims are. What they don't seem to understand is that coastal peoples are more likely to have seafood-based diets that are high in vitamin D, which means they don't need lighter skin. Again, I will put the studies below so you can look at this for yourselves. They don't understand common understanding of how this works. Every organism has the God-given ability to gradually modify their external features in order to better adapt to their given environment. That's why darker skin is generally found in sunnier regions, while lighter skin is generally found in less sunnier regions. No sane person can look at the indigenous skin color map and deny there is a clear pattern. Only a black supremacist nutball like Ron Dalton Jr. would deny this, and he does. Again, I'll put the links below.